what I hope to be a respectful, productive, and insightful meeting. As I'm sure we will discuss tonight, I've already been hard at work participating in committee hearings, meeting with local stakeholders, and introducing and co-sponsoring legislation. As your representative, it is my job to advocate for legislation to protect our communities, improve our economy, and make the government work better for you. I've only been here a few months, but I've already had the opportunity to be an active participant in the legislative process. So far, I've introduced two pieces of legislation, one aimed at improving bureaucratic forms process for veterans, and another to protect our correction facility officers. Throughout these few months, I have co-sponsored multiple, 24, pieces of legislation aimed at improving our workforce by closing the skills gap, improving our border security, fighting against fentanyl, and making sure small business owners and family farmers keep their businesses in the family. I have also enjoyed being an active member of three committees, the House Committee on Transportation Infrastructure, Agriculture, and Small Business. Tomorrow, I will be participating in my first hearing as the Vice Chair of the Highways and Transit Subcommittee, a subcommittee of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. I am looking forward to advocating for our local highways, bridges, and infrastructure in this role. In my 81 days now as your representative, I've had the pleasure of meeting with thousands of you across the district. While I'm proud to represent you in Washington, my greatest joy is when I can speak directly with you about how my work can positively affect you. I spend as much time as I can back in the district, meeting with business owners, residents, and local groups about how Washington can work better for them. Just yesterday, I sent a letter to the president of Penn State, urging him to keep our NEPA area campuses open. Tonight, I'm here to answer your questions, share developments on my work in Washington, and learn more about what is most important to you. Well, enough for me. Let's get to some questions.
That's great. What I'd like to begin with here, before we get to some questions, is a short poll. We want to know what issue is most important to you. Is it inflation? If so, press 1. If it's community safety, please press 2. For protecting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, press 3. For infrastructure, press 4. And if it's other, press 5. Again, what issue is most important to you? For inflation, press 1. Community safety, 2. Protecting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, 3. Infrastructure, 4. And if it's another, please press 5. Okay, let's go to a caller. We're going to take Judy. Judy, you're on the line. What would you like to ask?
Hey, Rob. I'm curious to see if we are going to be getting a railroad actually going from Scranton to the city. My husband did work for a steam town for 25 years, and it was always something that was on the agenda, and so far nothing has happened. What do you think is going to be our prospects for getting a railroad going through?
Well, Judy, thank you for that question. Like you, I have heard about the possibility of commuter rail transitioning to New York City. And just last week, I sent a letter to the Federal Railroad Administrator to give my support to the Scranton, New York City Amtrak passenger rail project. Early speculation would suggest that it would bring $84 million a year in economic growth to our region and create many construction and engineering jobs. Right now, we are in the Corridor 2 study. Back in December, we had met with the Secretary of Transportation, Mike Carroll, where we were talking about PennDOT's involvement in the process, but I would suggest that the passenger rail project is closer than it has ever been before. So we are excited to continue to move it. Obviously, serving on transportation infrastructure is extremely passionate to me, but it's a big project. There's going to be 2 bridge crossings over the Delaware River. But we're going to keep the pedal to the metal and get this, hopefully, the train out of the station here. So I really appreciate that question.
Thank you. Let's take another question, please. Let's go to Chet. Chet, what's on your mind?
Hi. I'd like to ask the Congressman what exactly his veterans bill at the VA does for our servicemen.
Thank you for that question. So one of my top priorities in Congress is fighting for those who fought for us. That's why the first bill I introduced in Congress was the Simplifying Forms for Veterans Claims Act. Veterans must complete VA standards forms to initiate and pursue their claims for the VA benefits, yet these forms can often be difficult to understand. I actually watched my grandmother go through it when she was executing these for my grandfather. These forms would include those filled out by a surviving spouse or other family members following the passing of their veteran loved one. The complexity of these forms can be overwhelming for the veteran's grieving family, and there's no reason for veterans or their survivors to be subjected to a process more difficult than necessary when these forms can be improved, making them user-friendly. So the Simplifying Forms for Veterans Claims Act is common sense legislation that would ensure veterans are able to complete VA forms correctly without unneeded stress so they can receive fair and timely decisions on their claims for the VA benefits. Actually, tomorrow I will attend the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee hearing where this bill will be voted on and passed to the whole committee for a vote, meaning after tomorrow, this legislation will be one step closer to the president's desk.
Great. We have some poll results for you right now. We had asked you what is most important to you. 14% of you said inflation. 5% of you said safety. 52% of you said Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. 6% said infrastructure, and 24% said other. And before we get to another caller, I'd like to remind everyone, if you would like to ask the Congressman a question live, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. Again, that's *3 on your keypad to ask a question live. And to sign up for the Congressman's newsletter, please press *6. We have another poll question for you. Should non-citizens be permitted to vote? If you believe yes, please press 1. If you think no, please press 2. And if you're undecided, please press 3. Again, should non-citizens be permitted to vote? 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're undecided. Let's go to another caller, please. We have Richard. Richard in Hazleton. What's on your mind, Richard?
Hi, Congressman. I'm a 41-year veteran of Mary, and I'm thrilled, first of all, that we got a young guy like you in Congress, and the way you've started off by showing that you're interested in the older people on SNAP, Medicaid. But things have changed after you won your election, and that was our president has brought on board as a very close advisor a person by the name of Elon Musk. This individual worries me because of the amounts of money that he has access to in the form of billions of dollars. And when you stand before Congress and you're asked to take a vote to help your constituents in the way of those Medicaid and Medicare benefits, and Elon Musk, who's been tasked to remove close to $2 trillion from the budget, it's kind of telling me if you don't vote in line with Elon Musk and the administration, you might be primary. What are you going to do? That's something I've never seen in my life, and you're now stuck with this problem. Who are you going to represent, Elon Musk or the people in your district that put you in as congressman? And I thank you very much for taking my call.
Well, Richard, thank you for the question. And first and foremost, the people of northeastern Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District are the people that gave me a chance to represent them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, those are the same people, including yourself, that I will be accountable to. So let me start off with the Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, because there's a lot of scuttlebutt going on, and I'm actually receiving the own mail suggesting that I am cutting or stripping away these rights. So I want you to know that I will fight to protect working-class families in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I also will stand with President Trump in opposing gutting Medicaid. My position on this has not and it will not change. So just our district, the 66,000 Medicaid recipients. That is 27.1%. There are 66,000 Medicare recipients and 190,000 Social Security recipients. These are programs that our neighbors rely on, and I will fight to ensure that those whom the program was designed for, the most vulnerable U.S. citizens, and eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, can access them long term. I support the efforts to remove illegal aliens from the Medicaid rolls and requiring work for able-bodied individuals with certain parameters, which hasn't been spelled out, and if it's not spelled out correctly, then we will not be supporting that. But I joined with other Republicans in a letter to Speaker Johnson expressing concern for gutting Medicaid and other programs like SNAP. Many of you are probably wondering how I could promise not to gut Medicaid and then vote for the budget resolution, and I'm happy to explain that. That resolution was the first step in negotiating with the Senate on a process called reconciliation. This is the process, though, which will extend the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and the budget resolution does not mention Medicaid once, not in all of its 86 pages. Some of you may have heard that the resolution instructs the Energy and Commerce Committee, which covers health care, to make cuts up to $880 billion over 10 years. And you may have heard that the only way to hit that target is to cut Medicaid. As I said, this is the first step in negotiations, and I'm working with the White House, Speaker Johnson, and our Senate counterparts to ensure that a final reconciliation package does not gut these programs. Actually, I was just at the White House with the president, and we had this, we were talking about this, it's a non-starter. A number of Senate Republicans, like Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Josh Hawley of Missouri, there's a handful, but the President Trump and Speaker Johnson have both said that we will not gut Medicaid, and I agree with them. And if a final reconciliation package guts Medicaid, I'm not going to support it. It's that simple.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I'd like to remind everyone, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad right now. Again, that's *3 if you would like to ask the Congressman a question live. Next up, let's go to Greg. Greg, what's on your mind?
Congressman, hey, thanks for reaching out to the people, and I know you've been working on the stormwater fee, is known as the rain tax, and thank you so much for that. Can you give us an update on what's going on with the rain tax?
Well, Greg, appreciate the call in. As you know, back in early March, we had EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin come to the district where we discussed this, and there's concerns as the implementation of the stormwater management fee and the unfunded mandate that was handed down to the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority, and with them complying with the federal mandate and a 2009 executive order. But, the moral of the story is we started the dialogue. We had a great contingency and great representation of northeastern Pennsylvania there, and obviously we expressed our frustrations with the fee. I mean, we ran on kitchen table issues and making life affordable again. And we have a great responsibility to take care of the environment and our communities. Pennsylvania 8 is home to growing recreational economy built around our region's natural beauty and the Pocono Mountains and the Delaware River Water Gap recreational area. And I'm a firm believer in a yes and approach. We can engage in many different elements, and we were, had an important step in unleashing the energy dominance and eliminating the rain tax in our district. And I've expressed concerns over the rain tax, and we'll continue to work with the necessary officials and agencies to fix the issue for northeastern Pennsylvania. We have weekly and monthly calls now with the administration, and this is certainly staying on the forefront of our minds.
Thank you very much. We have some poll results. We asked you, should non-citizens be allowed to vote? 87% of you said no. 7% of you said yes. And 6% of you are undecided. A reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 right now. And let's go now to Richard. Richard, you're live with the Congressman. What's on your mind?
Richard Richard Larish here from East Stroudsburg. Hey, Rob. Hey, I'm just concerned about what's going on with the HR Bill 38, which is the Constitutional Concealed Carry Act. I know you were a co-sponsor, you signed it recently. I just want to know where we're at with that. I know it's been introduced like 5 times already.
It is still inside of the committee, and I was an original co-sponsor on that, so I do appreciate the question, Richard. And as I was said, while running for office and since taking office in January, the safety of our communities is one of our top priorities, and any loss of life due to violence is a tragedy. And I'm a proud supporter of our Second Amendment and the rights of law-abiding citizens to own and carry firearms. I also strongly support enforcing our laws already on the books to prevent firearms from getting into the hands of criminals. We also must focus on addressing the root cause of violence, such as mental health issues, economic instability, and crime prevention. But listen, as a strong supporter of 2A, who has my license to carry, part of my routine before I drive to Washington, D.C. is making sure my vehicle is in the proper setting to travel, and which includes making sure my concealed weapons are outside of my car. So I would love to finally get this thing across the finish line, and I have some Chairman Richard Hudson is the lead originator of this bill, and I have a lot of faith and confidence in his ability to push this through. So hopefully the 119th Congress will be the time.
Thank you, Congressman. And I'd like to take a minute to thank everyone who's participating in this important event. Again, if you'd like to ask the Congressman a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad right now. And if you'd like to follow the Congressman's e-newsletter, please press *6. Next up, we have Kate. Kate, you are live with the Congressman.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for taking my call, and thank you for your service in being an elected official. I'm a 43-year-old woman, a mother, and I've been voting since I'm 18 years old. I haven't missed an election. My question is, given what's transpired over the past few days regarding the reporter from The Atlantic who was inadvertently added to the text chain regarding the mission in Yemen with the Houthis, I'd like to know how you're going to hold the individuals accountable on the federal level who, added that person to the text chain, given that it is a major national security breach. And I'd love to hear how you plan to handle that.
Yeah, great question. And like you, we were certainly discouraged to learn about it. Obviously, it's a relatively new situation, but like many Americans, I'm concerned with the reports of sensitive national security intelligence being shared over non-secure channels. I do not sit on the Armed Services, Intelligence, or Oversight committees. I am confident my colleagues on those committees will get to the bottom. I will work with them tirelessly to ensure sensitive intelligence is kept secure. A new development was that Senator Wicker, who chairs the Senate Armed Service Committee, has already confirmed plans to investigate the war plan group chat. And we will certainly be keeping our eye on that ball as this progresses. Sometimes we learn about things in real time, as do the rest of you. So certainly a fluid, relevant question, and we'll certainly be tracking it.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to go to Thomas, who's calling from Mayfield. Thomas, you're up with the Congressman. What's on your mind?
Good evening, Congressman. I'm a borough official, and one of the problems that
Oh no, Thomas, did we lose you?
can you hear me?
Nope, now we got you.
Yes, I'm a councilman in Mayfield Borough, and I'm calling because one of the problems that we have is getting funding for paving local roads. Essentially we rely on the liquid fuels tax that the state provides through, so there's very little money, And as you know, in northeastern Pennsylvania, our roads are really terrible. So is there any way that the federal government could help local municipalities with this problem?
So great question. One obviously close to my heart. And what I said earlier, I serve on 3 committees: Highway and Transits, where I'm the vice chair of Highway Transit, where we will in Transportation Infrastructure, Highway Transit, where the surface reauthorization bill will be coming up inside of this Congress. I also serve on Economic Development, Public Buildings, and Emergency Management. And like many of you know, before I came to Congress, I worked for my family's heavy highway electrical construction business. We grew from 50 employees to 150 employees and invested heavily in northeastern Pennsylvania. And another startling statistic is 25% of the bridges in our district are structurally deficient. Just like last week with the West Nanticoke Bridge was closed to all vehicular traffic. So we have to think about creative ways that we can extend the surface reauthorization and make sure that we're making meaningful impacts. I think another thing to take into consideration is where we are located geographically on a map, where our winters are extremely cold and our summers are very hot. And water and asphalt do not mix with expanding and contracting. That's something we can't help with, but what we can do is make sure that the federal government does a better job making sure that the end user, our local boroughs, political subdivisions, municipalities, townships, are on the receiving end of good dollars to really make meaningful work. Growing up, I think about all the times where, you're painting over rust oftentimes, and the milling, it's a productive temporary fix, but it's painting over, rust. And with the roadways and the average Pennsylvania motorist spending on average close to $1,000 extra per year fixing their vehicles because of unkept roadways, it's certainly something. And when I was looking to serve on different committees in Congress, transportation infrastructure was always at the top of my mind, as it was my background. So I'm hoping to really make some meaningful suggestions and changes while we work through this process. This could be a very large spending bill on behalf of Congress. So we want to really make that count and make a meaningful impact.
Next up, let's go to another caller. Carrie, you're up. What's your question for the Congressman?
Good evening, Congress Bresnahan. Thank you for all that you're doing in Washington, and thank you for holding this town hall this evening. I think it's going to be very productive. I wanted to ask you about the housing market, if you have any ideas about our local housing and how to create more inventory.
So access is key to the American dream, and looking at ways to incentivize access through tax code is certainly something that we've thought about. We have to decrease inflation, which drives higher labor costs and material costs. And just last week, we had met with the United Way of Monroe County, where they have some targeted housing opportunities that they are looking at and partnering with on the USDA and some lower interest financing. But we've seen, and I was also a real estate developer, and you're looking at the cost of labor, the cost of material, and then interest rates themselves combined with low material. And, let's face it, we've seen houses in northeastern Pennsylvania go from, $150,000 to $300,000 over a period of 5 years. And the conventional loan of 20% down, and thinking about my generation specifically, it's just not practical in this day and age with where housing prices are. So we have to do a better job in getting the actual cost of material down, and, working with local officials and removing with red tape on all levels of government. But that's a really exciting question. Actually, this is something we talked about during the Scranton Chamber of Commerce Business Roundtable just earlier at the end of last week. And, we're northeastern Pennsylvania is an incredible place to call home with the economic opportunity, with our proximity to New York City, to Philadelphia. Within 1 day CDL drive, you can reach 60% of the United States population. Within 250 miles, it's over 200 million people. So there's incredible opportunities here, but obviously the limiting agent in attracting people to our area for family-sustaining careers will obviously be housing. So I think the federal government needs to do a better job in finding old homes and making them more energy efficient. And I support tax credits to weatherize homes and try to offset the burden. But then you look at just the cost of sustaining a home with property taxes. I mean, we saw Lackawanna County have a 33% tax increase. Monroe County also has one. So we need to really take a holistic approach here and find creative solutions. And it's certainly, we have active conversations with the Housing and Urban Development, and obviously finding ways to incentivize developers, offset the cost of those projects. And I think we need to see those interest rates continue to compress and move down, just so the American dream of owning a home is obtainable for, my generation, my parents' generation, and our next generation, because right now, quite frankly, it's just not.
I'd like to thank everyone for their questions this evening. If you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad right now. Again, that's *3 if you would like to ask the Congressman a question live. Up next, we're going to go with Kimberly. Kimberly, you're live. What's your question?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Bresnahan. My question is, are you for supporting no taxes on Social Security?
That's certainly an agenda set out by the White House, and it's certainly something that we support. I think with the cost of living and inflation, our senior citizens, including my own grandmother, depend on these benefits. And when you're looking at the cost of groceries, luckily fuel has been trending in the right direction with gas, but having those minuscule adjustments aren't nearly enough to keep up with fixed incomes and what we're actually taking home at the end of the day. I also think this is part of a larger discussion on pro-family tax code and making sure that we're thinking about this comprehensively. But yes, to answer the question simply, yes, we do support that.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 right now. And if you'd like to sign up for the Congressman's e-newsletter, please press *6. Next up, we have a question from Eugene. Eugene, what's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call. And Congressman, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. My family is all from Nanticoke. I have a number of family members in Nanticoke, and many of them, to get to work, have to cross over the West Nanticoke Bridge. You mentioned it just a few moments ago. Do you have any updates for us on the status of the West Nanticoke Bridge, and hopefully some funding?
So actually, that whole closure came as a shock to even me when I had to read about it in the newspaper, just like everyone else. And trust me, I expressed my displeasure, specifically coming from, as the Vice Chair of Highways and Transit. But I'm committed to fixing our failing roads and bridges and using my position on the committee to support hard infrastructure projects in our district that get our people and goods moving safely and quickly. And, the reality is, bridges don't discriminate between socioeconomic incomes. Everybody drives on those same bridges. And, looking at the West Pittston Bridge, that's been ongoing for months. Now with the West Nanticoke Bridge, I don't know, we have to come up with a solution. And actually to answer the question, the update is we did speak with Senator Baker on Friday night. We spoke with Representative Alec McCavage earlier that day. We have a call with the County Commissioner, Ramilda Crocamo, coming up, as well as in next week is the plan to meet with Secretary Duffy of the Department of Transportation, where, we can't have 25% of bridges in our district being structurally deficient. And it's something that we are going to work endlessly on. But let's be real, infrastructure is very expensive. But we cannot not have a vehicle or a method to get across the Susquehanna River. So it's remains a top priority. It is front of mind. It is center of conversation on all fronts. And but the update is there has been state funding allocated. There has been federal funding also allocated to the project. Now it is, when those projects were originally estimated, the cost of material, the cost of construction has increased. So there could become a conversation that the federal government needs to come in and make sure that the funds are available for that construction to take place. And the other reality is the time it takes, the permitting process that it takes, the actual area of demolishing the old existing structure, or can we build it parallel in continuity and work off of that structure. But we've been watching the West Pittston construction. My building is, right across the street, and it's totally, it's a travesty. And we're putting additional wear and tear on the concrete bridge in Pittston to West Pittston, which ultimately is going to need major revitalization. I think the cost of those two bridges is north of $109 million right now, and the feds had committed close to just under $20 million. So there's a big delta there. So to get back to the Nanticoke Bridge, we are flipping over every stone, and once we have a clear commitment from all the various different ancillary parties, we'll know what we need to go after.
Next up, we have Lorna calling from Wilkes-Barre. Lorna, you're live with the Congressman.
Okay. Hi, Congressman Bresnahan. First thing I'd like to do is say thank you so much for hosting this town hall. I want to tell you I'm very excited to have you representing me and our communities in Congress. My question to you is regarding the border. Do you feel that President Trump is doing a good job securing our border after such a disastrous numerous years? And I also wanted to ask you about the Lake and Riley Act, of which I'm so thrilled that you voted to have it passed. Have you received a lot of positive feedback on that?
Well, really appreciate you taking the time here to call in, and I love the moderator, Wilkes-Barre, Wilkes-Barre, Wilkes-Barre. It's, everyone always asks me, how do you pronounce it? I'm more of a Wilkes-Barre person. But listen, we need strong border. I personally have been to the southern border 2 separate times, and I saw how the failed policies of the last administration led to a record number of illegal crossings, human trafficking, and fentanyl being smuggled across our borders. My very first action in Congress was to help introduce and pass the Lake and Riley Act. This bill, which was signed into law by President Trump, now requires that illegal immigrants who have been arrested for theft, burglary, or assault of a law enforcement officer be detained until they can be deported. Lake and Riley's death was preventable, and I am proud to help support solutions to help ensure that other families do not have to endure that same pain. I mean, we've seen the amount of crossings drop drastically since President Trump has assumed office, but I think we have to talk about fentanyl in coordination with what was happening at the southern border. And I'm laser focused on combating the fentanyl epidemic, which only has gotten worse in the last few years. As someone who has personally lost a family member to the fentanyl crisis, I know that no community is immune from this epidemic, and on average, one Pennsylvanian dies from a drug overdose every 2 hours, and around 3 out of the 4 deaths involve fentanyl. We could not afford to sit idly by, which is why I was proud to help pass the bipartisan Halt Fentanyl Act, which would permanently designate fentanyl analogs as a Schedule I of the Controlled Substance Act. I'm also glad I could join my colleagues in confronting the crisis head on, protecting our children, our families, and our neighbors from this. It's deadly and it's dangerous, and it needs to stop.
I'd like to remind everyone out there, if you'd like to sign up for the Congressman's e-newsletter, please press *6 on your keypad now. Next up, we have Mary Grace. Mary Grace, what's on your mind?
your take on it? What are you trying to do to curb it? Hello?
Can you ask that question again, Mary Grace, please?
Yes. What is your take on the inflation? What are you trying to do to curb it?
Well, great question. Energy dominance. The top issue of most Americans in this election, myself included, was the economy. Inflation is squeezing the pockets of hardworking families, Pennsylvanians, and our seniors on fixed income. Controlling inflation will require strong, pro-growth economic strategy, which puts Americans first. Keeping our taxes low to support our families and small businesses will be vital. I will work with my colleagues to extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. Failing to do so would have drastic consequences on our district. The average taxpayer in Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District, northeastern Pennsylvania, would see a 24% tax hike if the tax cuts expire. A family of four making $61,140, the median income of our district, would see a $1,156 tax increase if the tax cuts expire. This is worth about 6 weeks of groceries to a typical family of four in the region. Almost 80,000 families would see their child tax credit cut in half. Over 90% of our district's families would see their guaranteed tax deduction slashed in half. 37,000 small businesses in our district would be hit with a 43.5% tax rate if the 199A small business deduction expires. The National Association of Manufacturers estimates that these provisions expire, our district will lose over 12,000 jobs, $1 billion in lost wages, and close to $2 billion lost in gross GDP. One of the driving forces of our inflation is energy prices. Soaring energy costs burden our families and local businesses and holds our district back from reaching its energy potential. We should be unleashing our energy potential to spur up our district's growth.
Thank you, Congressman, and thanks to everyone participating in this event. If you'd like to ask a question live, please press *3. And if you'd like to follow the Congressman's e-newsletter, please press *6. Next up, we have Marianne from Scranton. Marianne, what's on your mind? Marianne, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep,
hey, Marianne. Yep, we got you.
Oh, okay. The first thing I wanted to say is when I heard you won, I pinched myself. I couldn't believe it. I'm so thankful.
Thank you.
I'm so thankful.
I hope that was a good pitch.
Yes. I'm so thankful that there's a new era of truth in government and a government that serves the people. And I just want to say that I'm frustrated by a commercial that plays over and over on television where a healthcare worker is drumming up fear that you've already cut Medicaid. And I just wanted to hear you say Medicaid hasn't been cut and it's not going to be cut.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for bearing through the television ads. But listen, it frustrates me more than anything when my position on this has not and will not change. These programs we rely on, including my own family, I will fight to ensure that those whom the program was designed for will have access to them. Now, listen, I'm against with the waste, the fraud, where you have multiple people receiving different benefits, illegal aliens receiving these benefits. Listen, yeah, I support cutting it from people that are stealing from the rest of us, sure. But when it comes to the people that worked and deserve it and need it, our most vulnerable people that need it, I will not be laying a finger on it. I will never support something that will do that. But when it comes to the fraud and the abuse inside of that system. Hear it from my mouth to your ears. My position on this will not change. And earlier I gave the statistics. We have over 200,000 people on Medicaid, 27.1. We are the second highest receiving congressional district in the state of Pennsylvania. 190,000 people depend on these Social Security benefits. And this is absolutely will not be something that I would ever vote to support. And to be bluntly honest, the ads that you're seeing are lies.
Congressman, we have a question for you from those on Facebook. The question is, what are you doing to lower the price of things like eggs that have been in the news lately?
So, great question. I ran on putting northeastern Pennsylvania first, and every action I do is through the lens of how it will help and hurt our community. When my staff brings me legislation to support, my first question is, how will this help the people of Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District? Now, actually, I serve on the Agriculture Committee, and just in the last 2 weeks, there's been a $1 billion initiative to help offset. We are dealing with an avian flu outbreak, which I was speaking to a farmer in central Pennsylvania who lost over 2.5 million birds. But you know, when we attend these different committee hearings, we talk about the kitchen table issues. We talk about the taxes. We talk about the utility bills. We talk about the increase of every element of what we all talk about at our kitchen tables at night. The Ag Committee has a pretty strong initiative here to set the record straight on the egg pricing. And actually, Brooke Rawlings, the Secretary of Agriculture, was just inside of our hearing last week. And, you know, just some numbers here. The average wholesale price of eggs, it did drop. I mean, this was as of March 16th, March 17th. And we saw eggs from $6.55 a dozen down to $3.45 a dozen, and we're seeing a trend in the right direction. But it's always alarming when you go to a restaurant and they don't even publish the prices because of how volatile remember during the chicken wing shortages during the Super Bowl. That's never a good sign of the times, but I'm confident that just like fuel prices have continued to drop, egg prices will be doing the same.
Before we get to our next caller, I'd like to remind everyone that if you'd like to ask a question live, please press *3 on your telephone keypad right now. And if you'd like to sign up for the Congressman's e-newsletter, please press *6. Next up, we have Floyd. Floyd, you are live with the Congressman.
Thank you, Congressman Bresnahan. I'm glad to know Saturday you're going to be here in German, Pennsylvania. That's Jermyn. Mr. German came here. He pumped up 1 million tons of coal the first year. But and also the German, Pennsylvania is the site where first aid began. But my question is, there's rumors that the Army Depot in Tobyhanna is closing. Is that true?
No. And hello, Floyd. Greetings to German. And since taking office, we've done over 50 different appearances in 81 days. And to go back to the Tobyhanna Army Depot, we actually just visited the facility last week. And I was able to meet with representatives from the AFGE. We met with leadership, and we had heard rumors about this swirling. So we immediately reached out to all the various different channels, the Department of Defense, and also escalating to the White House after the Army's congressional liaison didn't give us a satisfactory answer. So our troops need and deserve our support. And as your representative, I promise to support our troops who protect our freedoms. Our district plays an integral role in our national defense, and this includes Tobyhanna Army Depot. The depot and what I got to see there was just incredible. When you drive by, you don't realize how incredible of a facility we have right in our backyard. But it provides joint services with essential command, control, communication, cyber intelligence, surveillance, and the efforts to ensure America's military is ready, modern, and prepared to execute their warfighting mission. Also, it employs over 3,000 people from across northeastern Pennsylvania. As our nation discusses proper allocation of federal resources to ensure mission-critical operations and our national security, ensuring that continued operations has to remain a top priority. And our team is in constant communication with the Army's congressional liaison, the White House, and the Department of Defense to ensure this facility's continued success. And I want to assure our community that I will continue to advocate for Tobyhanna and the family-sustaining jobs it provides to northeastern Pennsylvania.
Our next caller is Mary. Mary, you're live with the Congressman. What's your question?
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for taking my question. I heard that you were vice chair of the Highway and Transit Subcommittee, and I was wondering what you're planning to do on that committee.
Well, we like to build things, specifically our roadways and our highways, and obviously that was not obviously, but that's what my background used to be. And I want to push to modernize and support apprenticeship programs. I'm passionate about ensuring the upcoming generation of workers and these apprenticeship programs understand digital infrastructure and incorporating new technologies into hard infrastructure. In Washington, we talk about having a 21st century workforce, but we're a quarter of the way through the 21st century. So we need to be full speed ahead on getting the current and next generation of workers trained to meet the needs of our growing economy. But something else is being prudent and responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When you think about highway construction and some of the different projects that will be coming through the pipeline, we have to make sure that we are maximizing our impact. And what we don't want to be focused on is haphazard spending or inefficiencies on productivity. And there's obviously we are in a digital workforce, but what's great about infrastructure, it creates family-sustaining careers. And I think it's a great way to rebuild our workforce. It's a way to rebuild our roads and our bridges. It's a great way to rebuild think about transportation as a whole. And when I look at it, I think about it as levees. I think about it as ports. I think about it as our power distribution grids. When 50% of our power distribution technology and infrastructure was built in the 1950s with 50 years of usable life. And that's coming to an end. And if you use your fingers and toes, you'll realize that we are well beyond the useful life. And you're going to start to see these AI data centers start to pop up around northeastern Pennsylvania and the rest of the country, but there is going to be a limiting agent, and the limiting agent is going to be power availability. So we have to make sure that we are investing intelligently to keep up with the demands, but also make sure we have the workers to perform. Something that I've had ongoing conversations with is expanding our apprenticeship programs and workforce development to include job-ready employees on day one for the ever-changing highway industry. But it's a great way to rebuild. When you think about the wages that come through infrastructure jobs, building trade jobs, I mean, these are family sustaining. I mean, and when you go through an apprenticeship program, you're earning while you learn, you're graduating with $0 in debt, and you have a job on day one. And a job that will never, ever be replaced by a robot or artificial intelligence. So we have a lot of work to do in northeastern Pennsylvania, and I'm really excited to bring pragmatic real-life experience to the committee where we can be partnering with key decision makers along the process and bring real-life experience to the table.
I'd like to remind everyone, if you'd like to sign up for the Congressman's e-newsletter, please press *6 on your telephone keypad right now. Before we get back to a caller, we'd like to do another poll. We have a question for you. do you believe our country is on the right track? If you say yes, please press 1. For no, please press 2. If you're undecided, press 3. Again, do you believe our country is on the right track? Yes, press 1. No, press 2. Undecided, press 3. Let's go back to our callers. Steve, you are live with the Congressman. What's on your mind?
Hi, Rob.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Good. Quick question. The Delaware Basin Commission and their overreach on the gas drilling in Wayne and Pike County. I know that you had a meeting not too long ago, and I was wondering if the President and the Congress and the Senate are going to try to help with getting our natural gas rights back.
I can confirm that people recognize the $900 million worth of natural gas in Wayne County, and I'm committed to reining in the bureaucratic groups like the Delaware River Basin Commission. I'm guessing that's what you're referencing. And we can responsibly, and emphasize responsibly. My birthday is Earth Day, so I am very passionate about preserving and doing everything here in the proper ways, but to capitalize on the energy underneath our feet. And revenue from this will improve local roads, parks, water, wastewater infrastructure, and encourage family farms to remain in the family rather than to be sold to developers. This is a great example of how natural gas extraction supports conservation. But there will be some developments in the early months of April, and these conversations will continue to happen. But Administrator Zeldin is fully aware of the capabilities of what Wayne County could bring to the table. And referencing back the AI data center opportunities, these are going to require energy. And I think we can tie this all back into the demand that we're going to have for the energy. But I also think we can talk about renewables. And there is a plethora of opportunities. I actually signed on to a letter to support the energy tax credits inside of the Inflation Reduction Act, because I think there's a time and place for all sources of energy as we continue to move forward, but being cognizant of the cost of living and energy being the biggest derivative of inflation.
Our next caller is Andy. Andy, you're on live with the Congressman. What's your question?
Congressman, thank you for taking my call. I want to tell you I watched you on the campaign trail. I have been listening to your positions, and it's music to my ears, and thank you for winning this election, your last election.
Well,
My question is, what can be done on the federal level to help local police departments maintain equipment, technology, to keep up to speed with the changing environment? Senator Flynn and Representative Mullins have been great on the state level. What, through grants or something, could be done on the federal level? What could you do? How could you help us?
Andy, first, are you a police officer?
Chief of Police.
Well, thank you for your service to our community. And listen, I ran on having safe communities and an economy that works and borders that are secure. So you can rest assured that I will continue to support our police departments. And I'll always back the blue and support those that dedicate their lives to protecting our communities, including our police officers and our firefighters and our other first responders. And if there are certain grant opportunities, we would love to help. Our Scranton's office phone number, if you have a pen, to take this down, because any time that I'm back in the district, I love getting to meet with our police officers and first responders and find creative ways that we can be helpful. But the phone number to our Scranton office is 570-906-6850. If there's a specific project, I would love to come out and meet with you and sit down and talk about different opportunities. But I think, as many of you may know, right in our own backyard is United States Penitentiary Canaan, which holds some of the most the country's most violent criminals, including gang members and literal terrorists. You also may remember the tragic story from 2013 when correction officer Eric Williams was ambushed, stabbed over 200 times, and killed by violent gang members who were already serving life in prison. He was found guilty of Eric's murder only after 30 minutes of deliberation. However, due to just one juror who was biased against the death penalty, he could only be sentenced to another life sentence. This means there was essentially no punishment for the vicious murder of Officer Williams. This is why I introduced Eric's Law, which will fix this loophole in the justice system. It'll strengthen protections from our correction officers, deliver justice to those who commit violence against them, and bring peace of mind to victims, families, friends, and communities. And I was honored to be joined at the State of the Union by Mr. Don Williams, Eric's father, who has been advocating for the bill since 2015. And to our correction officers, thank you for your service. After visiting USP Canaan and seeing it firsthand, I mean, it is truly a remarkable work environment and remarkable in the most violent term I can possibly associate to. But I will continue to advocate for legislation like this that help protect those that protect us.
Thank you. Let's go to Ed now. Ed is on the line. Ed, what's your question?
Yes, Congressman. I would like to know about the small family farms in Pennsylvania. They keep dwindling and dwindling, and all the big corporate farms seem to be taken over. It seems like it's the same thing that happened with the eggs. No pun intended, but when you have all your eggs in one basket, the same way with dairy farms. When you have all your milk in one can, something's going to happen.
Great question. Agriculture in northeastern Pennsylvania is approximately $65 million a year, with $10 million of that being in dairy. And if you look historically, that number has been continuing to decline. And when we were looking at different committees to represent, when I first was sworn in, I wanted to serve on the House Agriculture Committee alongside Chairman G.T. Thompson from Western Pennsylvania. And I serve on two subcommittees there: conservation, research, and biotechnology, as well as commodity markets, digital assets, and rural development. In this committee, I'm working to support our Pennsylvania farmers, our producers, and our diverse agriculture industry that help our nation. And food security is national security. And to immediately answer that question is we need a 5-year farm bill. We've been talking about it, and every Congress, it seems to die on the vine. I know we have been given instruction that we plan on having a draft of this come June. But from our dairy farmers to our fruit and vegetable growers, our district is home to over 1,100 farmers. And of those farmers, you have 94% of them being family farms, on average at 174 acres. We have to remember that everything we eat is either grown and raised, and how much hard work goes into bringing the products from their farms to the table. To help support our farmers and producers, our committee's number one goal is that farm bill. It's traditionally passed every 5 years. It sets our nation's food and agriculture policy. American farmers depend on the stability it provides to help grow more food than ever with fewer resources. Also, the cost of growing crop with fertilizer, again, being the derivative of energy. I'm committed to working with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle to craft a bipartisan farm bill that can finally get across the finish line. In addition to the farm bill, too, I want to make note that I was very proud to support legislation like the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act. Very common sense bill that would reverse a USDA rule and once again allow schools to offer their students a wider variety of milk, including whole, reduced fat, low fat, and fat-free milk, both flavored and unflavored. So we know how important it is for our kids to have healthy meals at school, and milk is an essential part of better bone health, lower blood pressure, and reduced risk of cardiovascular disease while supporting our local farmers.
Congressman, we're nearly out of time. I'd like to hand it over to you for your closing remarks.
Well, thank you all for joining us here tonight. It means so much that you took time out of your schedule to join us and participate in our first town hall. I want to take a moment to highlight some of the poll questions from this evening, where 52% of you believe that the most concerning issue facing us today is protecting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I stand with President Trump in opposing gutting Medicaid. And like I've said time and time again, my position on this has not and will not changed. 87% of you believe that non-citizens should not be allowed to vote in elections. This is something that I also believe, and I'm glad to hear that you all agree. This evening, the President signed an executive order to require identification when voting in federal elections. And next month, the House of Representatives will be considering the SAVE Act, which will ensure voter integrity. It is really great to hear from so many constituents and learn about the questions and concerns that are of top of mind to you. And I want you to know that you are heard. Every day I ask my team what our constituents are calling about and what as a team we can do for Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District. My home, your home, our home. Every vote I take, I have you all in mind. And if you ever need anything, whether it be assistance navigating a federal agency or having a flag flown over the United States Capitol, please feel free to reach out to our staff. Again, we can be reached at 202-225-5546. Usually it's Owen answering the phone. Just so happy to, and I also have to take a moment here to thank our team for making this all happen. I mean, we have an incredible, fully staffed organization, which I can't be happier. And I realize that I was not able to answer everyone's questions this evening. If you didn't get around to your question, please stay on the line after the call to leave a message, and we'll get back to you with a response. I'm honored that you all chose me to advocate for you in Washington. Thank you all so much, and have a great night.
Thank you, Congressman. Have a great night, everyone.